Vice President Haley, we can begin if you so choose.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to begin this meeting at, I don't have a 9:05, I think. And with that, Executive Director Ross, will you please call the order?
President Corr,
Roll call.
Present.
Vice President Haley,
Here.
Superintendent Horn,
Yes, I'm here remotely because I'm visiting my sister in California, and the waves that you see behind me are not real. It's part of the background screen that automatically appears whenever I do a Zoom.
Member Catanese, Member Clark, Dr. Clay is not with us today. Dr. Hagerman,
Here.
Member Kravickas, Member Meyerson, Dr. Robbins is not with us today. Member Tovar, Vice President Haley, you have a quorum.
Great. Just a quick reminder, I'm stepping in for Dr. Corr since he's not able to be here in person. So thank you, Dr. Corr. Just a quick reminder, when we do roll call votes, please make sure your screen is on so we can see your beautiful faces, and be sure to take yourself off mute so that we can hear when it's time to record a motion. So with that, we will lead to the superintendent's report. So Superintendent Horn.
Do you do the president's report first?
Are you going to give an update, Dr. Corr?
No, thank you, Vice President Haley. I'll defer and look forward to seeing you all in person again next month. And my thanks to you for running the meeting. So I'll defer to the superintendent at this point.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about two items that are quite controversial. If you, and let me just say this first, if you know, the press likes to write about controversy. So if you rely on the press, you would think controversies are all I do. But in fact, 90%, I want to make this point, that 90% of my time and energy, as well as that of the department, goes into helping schools achieve better academic results. This has been set forth in my State of Education speech that I gave to at the legislature a couple of days ago, and attached to it is my list. We have 16 ongoing initiatives designed to help the schools get better academic results. Copies of that have been given to the state board members, but if anyone in the public would like to read it, if you just leave your email address with some staff there, we will be happy to send it to you, and it'll be posted on our website as well. So on to the controversies. The first controversy is the proposed new handbook. The proposed changes to the handbook were posted on the State Board of Education website a little over a week ago. A number of people did give input, and changes were made due to that input. However, in the last few days, it's come to my attention that a fairly large number of ESA parents didn't know that they needed to log into the Department of Education website and feel that they haven't had an adequate chance for input. So when it comes to that item in the agenda, I will be proposing a substitute motion that we put this off for a year, that the existing handbook continue for the next year, and that we will create a working group to facilitate getting as much input as possible. And I've been asked that the executive director, take input from some people at the legislature in choosing those people, which, you know, I assume he takes input from everybody, but he'll make the decisions as to who's recommended to the board for that working group. In any case, I think it's important that we have a full opportunity for everyone to give their input before a decision is made. And so I will be making that substitute motion, that rather than adopting the proposed changes today, that we let the existing handbook remain for the rest of this year, to give plenty of chance for input, and then we take it up when it's time to renew the handbook again next year. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is probably equally controversial, and that's the question of dual language. In my lawsuit filed regarding dual language, the judge did not reach the merits of whether or not the initiative requires that all students learning English be in structured English immersion. She ruled based on something that happened some years ago when I was not in office, when the legislature passed a bill as to what departments have the ability to sue and be sued, and the Department of Education was not one of them. I wasn't here to lobby to include the Department of Education. And I thought I had the implied power to sue because the legislature did give me a lot of duties to oversee education for English language learners. She felt that since it wasn't explicit, I could not bring the lawsuit, and we're appealing that. But at the same time, the initiative states in so many words that students that are learning English shall be taught English by being taught in English, and they shall be in English language classrooms. The wording could not be more clear. And so I think that is crystal clear that dual language is not legal under that initiative. And no one has the power to overrule a voter-passed initiative. By the way, it was passed overwhelmingly by the voters. The legislature doesn't have the power, the governor doesn't, the attorney general doesn't, the state board doesn't, and I don't. So I have the duty really to do everything I can to abide by a voter-passed initiative. Now the initiative also provides that any parent of a student in the state can sue any district throughout the state for violation of that initiative, and that if they're successful, the decision makers, which would be the school board and the superintendent, if fees are assessed against them, they have to pay it out of their own pocket. They can't be reimbursed by the district. They lose their offices and they can't run for office again for 5 years. That's a pretty serious sanction. And I try to avoid that by bringing what's called a declaratory action, just to get the judge to declare what the law was, which I thought then the schools would follow it without those. And I asked the districts not to oppose me for that reason. They chose to oppose me anyway. And so now a lawsuit is being brought by a parent, which has those sanctions as a possibility. So I thought it important that everybody know. The only other thing I want to say about it is this. When I first took office in 2003, the initiative had been passed in 2000 and was not enforced by my two predecessors. I was the first one to enforce it. So when I took office, we had bilingual education throughout the state, and the rate of students becoming proficient in English within 1 year was a pathetic 4%. At that rate, almost nobody would ever become proficient, and they would fail in the economy. After I instituted structured English immersion, the rate went up to 31%. At 31%, within 3 or 4 years, almost everyone becomes proficient in English. So and then in more recent data, we've compared apples to apples and found that the structured English immersion districts outperform the dual language districts by 4 to 1. So anyone interested in the success, the academic success of the students, the data is overwhelming that they're better off with structured English immersion. But equally important is it's the law, and we're all obligated to follow the law. That completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Horn. So now we will go to the Executive Director's report. Oh, there's another thing. Just kidding.
Vice
We're moving
President
quickly.
Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Superintendent Horn, as a reminder, we have the Milken Award winners and the
Oh, thank you.
Presidential Award winners today under your report.
Oh, that's
that-
under my report. I'm prepared to do it. I just didn't realize it was under my report.
Sure, I
Should
didn't
we
know
go ahead?
if you wanted to do it or if you wanted Chief Staff Dugan.
No, I'll do it. I've got the scripts here.
All right, so yeah, go ahead, Superintendent Horn.
Okay. So are we starting with the presidential awards or the Milken awards?
We'll begin with the Milken Award winners. Thank you.
Okay, the Milken Educator Awards, created by Lowell Milken in 1987, have rewarded and inspired excellence in the world of education by honoring top educators around the country with $25,000 unrestricted awards. And throughout the 10 years now that I've served as superintendent, I've attended many of these awards. The Milken Educator Awards targets early to mid-career education professionals for their already impressive achievements, and more significantly, for the promise of what they accomplish in the future. Recipients are caught by surprise when their names are announced at emotional all-school assemblies in front of cheering students, proud colleagues, distinguished officials, and the media. The Milken Educator Awards bring attention to these classroom heroes, serving at once as validation, motivation, and inspiration to current and future quality educators. The message: we recognize you, we value, we thank you. Today, we are recognizing 2 educators who were honored in December 2023 as surprise assemblies at their schools as the 2023 Milken educators from our great state of Arizona. The first one is Ashley Meyer, first and second grade teacher at Horizon Honors Elementary School in Phoenix, Arizona. At Horizon Honors Elementary School, I'll let you take a minute for you to clap. First and second grade students spend 2 years exploring the ins and outs of learning and life from the mentor teacher, Ashley Meyer. Playing a vital role in the students' early educational development, she maximizes her time with everyone, working with her classroom collaborative team to strengthen foundational skills across the curriculum. Utilizing small groups to provide differentiated instruction, Meyer's interactive lessons help students master the material and its relevance to everyday life. She is often implementing ideas for hands-on projects during project group, a time dedicated for students to demonstrate comprehension of the day's studies. Meyer also helps to guide students through Summative, a quarterly opportunity for students to present the standards they have learned and resulting outcomes of their learning to family members. Her data-driven and evidence-based instructional practices have reaped consistent student achievement and growth, with her students outperforming the district in benchmark assessments. A collaborative educator at heart, Meyer's classroom door is always open for observations and feedback from colleagues. Her professionalism and positivity contribute to the culture at Horizon Honors Elementary, as colleagues turn to Meyer for ideas and input on topics such as classroom management and parent communication. Advancing teacher leadership, support, and team building is a hallmark of the school's partnership with the National Institutes for Excellence in Teaching. This year, Meyer increased her roles and responsibilities as a mentor teacher. In this role, she's an integral part of the school's instructional leadership team, lending her knowledge to school-wide professional development, curriculum development, and coaching. Meyer's advocacy for student accessibility and success inspires students and colleagues alike. She works closely with parents to set goals for their students, then creates individualized learning plans, ensuring all learners are prepared to excel at high levels. Having completed state dyslexia training, Meyer is attuned to monitoring her classroom for additional supports, such as reading needs, alternative learning opportunities, or behavioral accommodations. Outside of the classroom, Meyer sponsors a Spirit Squad club after school for 1st through 4th grade students. Meyer earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Illinois State University in 2016 and a master's in reading and literacy from Grand Canyon University in 2019. And I'm going to just go off script and say this is the type of teacher that's a role model for our other teachers, doing exactly what she should be doing. Congratulations, Ashley Meyer. I'm sorry I couldn't be part of that picture. And I wonder if the microphone is muted for those of us online. Are the others online having the same experience I'm having, that we don't hear what's being said?
We haven't said anything, so we just applauded. That's it.
So we're aware of the problem.
No comments were being made, so you can proceed to the next one, Superintendent Horn.
Okay, the second award winner is Aga Cook, a fifth grade teacher at Camp Mojave Elementary School in Fort Mojave, Arizona. Aga Cook's lifelong educational journey, Aga Cook's lifelong educational journey gives new meaning to the word dedicated. Originally hailing from Poland, as are my parents, so we're fellow Polacks, Cook has made her mark on Camp Mojave Elementary School in her roles as a fifth grade teacher and district level positions as a K-8 curriculum coordinator and data coach. Cook forges community partnerships to bring her data-driven lessons to life, whether it's turning her classroom into a mock trial, setting up a solar project with an electric company, or inviting a bank to speak to students about financial literacy. Her creativity and expertly weaving standards into her instruction is paying off, driving her students to consistently outperform the state and district in reading, writing, and math. Cook's success in the classroom has allowed her to broaden her impact on the school and district, where she helps lead fellow faculty in gathering, reporting, and utilizing data to inform instruction. As a curriculum coordinator, she helps to ensure the newly adopted ELA and math curriculum, as well as standards, pacing guides, meet students' needs. Sitting on the school leadership team, Cook often leads grade-level data meetings and collaborates with colleagues on effective instructional strategies. Her leadership extends to school and district professional development, where she has presented on topics spanning curriculum evaluation, data collection, assessment, and classroom management. Fostering a healthy growth mindset for herself and colleagues, Cook also attends conferences and presents at district board meetings. Additionally, she has contributed her rich knowledge of standards through rubric and pacing guide development on the Curriculum Adoption Committee and Curriculum Alignment and Revision Council. In addition to involving Fort Myer community in the collective education of her students, Cook develops strong relationships among families, communicating frequently with parents and providing live stream lessons for students who are absent outside of school. She teaches adult English as a second language classes at Mojave Community College. Cook earned a diploma of higher education in law from the University of Lodz in Poland in 2002, before arriving in Arizona in 2005. She received a Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education from Northern Arizona University in 2011, as well as her teaching certification there in 2012. Cook earned a Master of Education in Educational Administration from Grand Canyon University in 2019. Hearty congratulations, Ms. Aga Cook.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Continuing under the superintendent's report will be the award of the presentation of the Arizona educators who have been named as finalists for the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching.
Each year, the President of the United States recognizes outstanding mathematics and science teachers by bestowing upon them the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. These awards demonstrate the value and appreciation the nation has for its teachers. A finalist will next move forward to a national level. Those who are selected as awardees for this honor are a premier group of highly qualified teachers who have both deep content knowledge of the subjects they teach and the ability to motivate and enable students to be successful in these content areas. Collectively, they reflect the expertise and dedication of the nation's teaching corps, and they demonstrate the positive impact of excellent teachers on student achievement. Presidential awardees receive a certificate signed by the President of the United States, a trip to Washington, D.C. to attend a series of recognition events and professional development opportunities, and a $10,000 award from the National Science Foundation. Awardees also join an active network of outstanding educators from throughout the nation and are often asked to serve in advisory roles both locally and nationally. These finalists were nominated and started their applications in 2023. We are still waiting for the White House to announce the 2021 and 22. Next, we have the 5 state finalists that go into the national level for review. We will start with the 3 math finalists and then the 2 science finalists. First, Bridget Montoya, Flowing Wells High School, Flowing Wells Unified District. Second, Christy Peterson, Mesquite High School, Gilbert Public Schools District. And third, Johnson Trong, Basis School in Phoenix. And then we have 2 science finalists.
Superintendent Horn,
Cruz-
if we could
sorry.
pause for a moment, we want to just do quick photos with the math finalists, and then we'll do the science finalists. Just one moment.
Happy to, yes. The next one is Sandra Cruza, Micah Mountain High School in the Vail Unified District.
Superintendent Horn, 1 second. There was another photo that needed to be taken.
Sorry.
Superintendent, you're missing all the photo ops.
I know, I hate that.
I know a lot of photos.
The most dangerous place in Arizona is the space between a politician and a photographer.
Okay, Superintendent Horn, we can move to the science teachers now.
Thank you. The next one is Sandra Cruza, Micah Mountain High School, Vail Unified School District.
Superintendent Horn, you can move forward with the next science teacher as well, and then we'll do the photos.
Okay, the next one is Cassandra LaFay, Marana High School, Marana Unified School District.
Okay. All right, we're going to take photos again.
Well, we're just running. You guys got your hands full, so, oh, you got, okay. Perfect.
Thanks so much for being
Congratulations.
here. Thank you for being here. Congrats.
Congratulations.
Okay. And then we'll do one with,
Oh. Can I get over you? Too many cameras. That's perfect. One, two, three. One, two, three. I didn't just do an individual each.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Congratulations. Okay. Executive Director Ross, have we concluded the presentation superintendent's report, or Superintendent Horn, have we concluded your report?
My report is concluded.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the educators that were with us today. We're so proud of what you do for our students. So thank you for using your talent to bless them. Executive Director Ross.
The photo ops are going to keep on coming. So Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, this is a joyous beginning to a meeting. In addition to celebrating amazing educators from across the state, we are also going to celebrate some amazing kids from across the state. We have two awardees for our state board students of the month. Up first is going to be Charlie Canarish. He is a 12th grade student at the Jones Gordon School, and he was nominated by his college and career transition program director. The nomination really highlighted his kindness towards his peers and teachers, his activity in the community service projects. He served as student government president for 2 years and leads with kindness and diplomacy, and is a role model in class discussions and group projects and fostering supportive environments, and is just an incredibly valued member of the school community. And so we're really excited to have Charlie with us here today.
Is it unmuted?
Yep,
All right. Hello, my name is Charlie Canarish. I am a senior in high school and student government president at the Jones Gordon School, which I have attended since 7th grade. I am very appreciative of the Arizona State Board of Education for choosing me as the student of the month for March 2024. I would also like to express my gratitude to my wonderful teachers who nominated me for this award and have helped me grow and come this far over the last 6 years. My teachers have not only given me an outstanding education, but have cultivated important skills in how I approach my work and studying. My parents have also instilled successful habits in me and showed unconditional support and love. Over the years, I've learned how to be efficient, hold a flexible mindset, and work with determination while enjoying myself along the way. These skills will be important in the future, not just as a student, but also as a contributing member of my community. Alongside the skills my teachers have taught me, I am thankful for other opportunities that have been given to me. Since my sophomore year, I have been able to take AP and dual enrollment classes. These classes have pushed me past my regular work and sometimes outside of my comfort zone, but it has shown me how far I can go and all that I am truly capable of. Additionally, I will graduate high school with over a semester's worth of college credits. This will be useful when I attend ASU's Barrett Honors College this fall. Currently, I plan on majoring in psychology, but ASU has so much to offer that it may change. Once again, I am incredibly grateful for this award and everybody who has helped me get here. It means so much, and I will always carry this honor with me. I have learned many things throughout high school, both academically and about my own strength and resilience. I cannot wait to enter the next stage of my life, knowing that such great people have prepared me well. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, that's great, Charlie.
And today is also Charlie's birthday.
And so to continue the celebration of amazing kids in Arizona, up next we have a student, Deepika Mula, who's an 11th grade student from Pinnacle High School, was nominated by volunteer coordinator Marisha Garrity, and convinced student volunteer coordinators to create a youth tutoring program for high school students to tutor elementary school students. Modeled the success of a youth tutoring program by tutoring third grade students in reading, and third grade reading is of high importance to this board, so I knew that'd be exciting for you guys. Recruited 10 classmates to start a volunteer in Paradise Youth Corps and tutor second grade students at Palomino Primary School. And then collectively, the high school tutors logged 200 hours of tutoring with rave reviews of students and staff. So let's bring up Deepika.
Hello, my name is Deepika Mula, and I'm an 11th grader at Pinnacle High School, part of the Paradise Valley Unified School District. What I love about Pinnacle is their remarkable faculty. My teachers invest their time, energy, and dedication into creating an environment where students feel important and are supported and encouraged to reach their full potential. They have significantly impacted my educational path and helped me become a critical thinker. My journey with VIP started in the summer of 2022 with a phone call to Miss Marisha, who provided me an opportunity to tutor second grader in reading. Following this, in the August of 2022, I expanded my tutoring by forming the Volunteer in Paradise Youth Corps with Miss Marisha and Miss Linda along my side. I, along with 10 of my friends, tutored second graders in reading. In total, we tutored 200 hours during the school year. Currently, I am the president of the VIPYC, a club I established in my school with dedicated board members and tutors. We are tutoring second, third, and sixth graders in Palomino Primary and Quail Runs, which are both part of the Paradise Valley Unified School District. Seeing these joyful young faces during our tutoring sessions gives me great happiness. I'm also the member of National Honor Society and a board member of a few other clubs in my school. I'm currently pursuing in research projects in robotics at Arizona State University, and I've volunteered in multiple organizations such as food banks, key clubs, Boys and Girls Clubs, VIPYC, and libraries. For my service, I earned the Presidential Volunteer Award in Gold for having 100+ hours in June of 2023. I've been learning Indian classical dance for the past 10 years, and in September of 2023, I graduated with a 3-hour solo dance performance. These accomplishments taught me the value of hard work, perseverance, and teamwork, and showcased the impact one can make when they are determined. As a student, the most significant factor that has helped me grow is the ability and the strength to step out of my comfort zone. Previously, I used to be afraid of wanting to try new things and feared failure. Finally, breaking the bubble I always had around me allowed me to pursue much more than I could and opened up to many opportunities for me. Continuously pushing myself to learn, evolving, and expanding my horizons shaped me, giving me the chance to achieve academic success and become a more well-rounded individual. In the future, I hope to pursue my interest in chemical engineering and hopefully achieve a master's in biomedical engineering and obtain an MBA. I want to thank my parents for always supporting me, Miss Marisha and Miss Linda for helping me, believing me, and giving me the excellent opportunity to start VIPYC. Finally, I want to thank the Arizona State Board of Education for giving me this prestigious award. Thank you.
Executive Director Ross, anything else to your report?
Concludes the Taylor Swift eras moment of this of this meeting with all the photography. No, just to again say how amazing it is to have those kids and educators to start the meeting, and it got a little misty in here for a second, I know, for some of us, but that does conclude the report. Thank you, Vice President Haley.
Well, thank you. And thanks to all of our teachers and students that were with us today. We're really proud of you and grateful that we can recognize you. So item two was the call to the public. This is the time for the public to comment on items not on today's agenda or on the consent portion of the agenda. All speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Executive Director Ross, have we received any requests to speak?
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. We do have a list of folks registered to speak today. Up first will be David Gardner from Osborne Maladon, then Sarah Jedlowski from Stanford Children, and then Georgina Monsalvo from Stanford Children. There you go.
Okay. Good morning, Superintendent Horn, President Corp, and members of the board. I'm sure you wish that all the items on your agenda were as celebratory as what we just experienced. I'm David Garner, and I'm here this morning in an effort to avoid a potential miscarriage of justice that threatens irreparable impact to 2 schools who serve some of the Arizona's most vulnerable and challenging student populations. I'm an attorney representing.
Her paper here. There we go.
Yes. Important remarks there. So I'm an attorney representing Arizona Education Solutions, which operates 2 alternative online charter schools under the name Estravo Online Academies. These schools filed an appeal to their assigned letter grades, and the recommendation for that is on your consent agenda this morning on item 3H. And I'm here to request that you pull that from the consent agenda as it relates to Estravo, and that the board either grant Estravo's request that the recommendation be overturned, or at a minimum, refrain from making a decision at this time until Estravo and the Department of Education can meet with ADE's Chief Accountability Officer and the board's Executive Director to verify the analysis upon which ADE's recommendation is based. We've submitted a written comment, and I wish to very briefly elaborate on a couple of points for the board's consideration. As you see in your board packets, AD acknowledged that Estravo's appeal identified flaws and errors in their letter grade analysis, but concluded that the corrections to the data do not collectively improve the overall letter grade. With respect, we strongly disagree with this conclusion, and at the appeal committee hearing earlier this month, renewed a request to review and understand how ADE came up with what we believe to be a deeply flawed conclusion. In response, ADE's Chief Accountability Officer, Sean Smith, acknowledged communication breakdowns in addressing Estravo's legitimate concerns and acknowledged flaws and frustrations and problems in the letter grade analysis, particularly with respect to online schools. Most significantly, in concluding that Ostrava's legitimate concerns wouldn't make a difference, Mr. Smith acknowledged that ADE was asking the committee and now the board to, quote, trust us, we're the government, close quote.
Mr. Gardner,
Yes.
your 2 minutes has concluded.
Okay, we had just a couple of seconds there in terms of the
I think they
breakdown.
paused it, but
Yeah.
you can wrap up your last
I will.
sentence.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. In any event, please give us an opportunity to not just trust, but to verify, as the ADE has allowed and said they now have the manpower to do. And if you do pull it from the consent agenda, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Sarah Jedlowski, followed by Georgina Monsalvo, and then Daniel Hernandez.
Morning, President Core, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. My name is Sarah Jedlowski. I'm here today to advocate for the equitable treatment and education of every student in our state. The recent legal strategies targeting dual language programs, particularly in the context of previous judicial findings and the involvement of Superintendent Horn's spouse in a new lawsuit, are disconcerting and divert our attention from the core objective of education. The superintendent's job is to protect our public schools, not sue them. In light of these recent developments, it's imperative that we as a community dedicated to educational excellence for all students, including English learner students, and we should reaffirm our commitment to the 50-50 model for dual language immersion programs. These models hold the promise of enriching our students' educational experiences and preparing them for a diverse world. Hence, I urge the board to continue upholding and supporting this, along with the other 3 models for DLI, which were passed with bipartisan support in 2019 in a Republican majority legislature with a Republican governor. That being said, these programs need time to collect and analyze Arizona-specific data that truly represents the 93,000 English learners in our state. Our actions today will echo in the lives of our students tomorrow. Please choose a path that prioritizes the educational needs of all students. Thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next is Georgina Monsalvo, followed by Daniel Hernandez.
Dina couldn't make it.
Okay, go ahead, Daniel.
Good morning. It's good to see everyone. It's been a while since I've seen some of you. For the record, Daniel Hernandez, Associate Executive Director at Stand for Children. But many of you might remember me from when I was a school board member in Sunnyside for 8 years and then 6 years as a legislator in Arizona. I'm here on behalf of Stand for Children to talk about 2 things. The first is to thank you all. I think it's really important that we also acknowledge and thank that the majority of the board still stands by the 4 models that were adopted for ELL learners. And I think it's really important that as much as we are upset and worried about some of the board members who are going after this model, we have to acknowledge and thank you all for standing by these models, which provide data-based and research-based opportunities for students to be able to learn English in the most effective way possible. I was in 4th grade when the Prop 203 passed, and I got to see firsthand how poorly implemented that was because of the way that it was created. So in 2019, Stand for Children, before I joined them and was a member of the Arizona State House, actually worked with myself and many others in the legislature in a bipartisan way and unanimously passed a law that actually allowed you as a state board to be able to make changes so that we had more than just one model. Because after almost 20 years, we saw that the results were not where they needed to be. The structured English immersion doesn't work. It has never worked, and it will not work if we go back to it. That is why we are so thankful for the board for coming up with these 4 data and research-based models. But we know that they're going to need time to actually work. When you approved them in 2020, we went right into COVID. We have not given them time to be able to have data and research to show that they've actually been effective or not effective. But that is the beauty of the law that was passed in 2019. It allows you as a state board as a whole to come together, look at the research, and actually come and make edits and changes to the models if need be. But the continued attacks, we think, really undermine the purpose of this bipartisan law that was signed into law by a Republican governor, and also the intent that we all have, which is to make sure kids have the best education possible. So thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. We now are moving to our virtual speakers. We have John Kalaris, followed by Michael Economides, and then Jim Bannon.
1 second, Executive Director Ross. John Kalaris will join us in a minute.
John, if you're here, we're ready to hear
Yes,
your comments.
here. Are we on?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is John Kalaris, and I am a professor and a global consultant for more than 40 years, and I have visited more than 10 countries where I helped governments, institutions, and universities improve their efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity. In that capacity, I was fortunate enough to experience various educational systems. Being an academician, obviously that's what I was looking for. And I've been educated in Europe and in USA, and I have taught in both Europe and USA. This helped me appreciate the good attributes our educational system has, along with the many eon-long problems that we have in our educational system. That is why I wrote this book. I hope you can see it. The title of it is
We cannot
Broken
see your
Schools.
face.
Okay, no problem. I can send you a copy to all of you, whoever is interested. The title of it is Broken School System, Broke Students, and How to Fix Both. In that, I explain why our country is 17th or 35th in the world when other countries are constantly anywhere between first and fifth. We could be up there, but we're not. And next, I cite in my book the philosophy, which consists of 4 steps. But before I explain the 4 steps, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say this. We cannot cure a century-old problematic educational system overnight. Our educational system needs to be restructured, reorganized, and redesigned according to methodologies I have. And let's keep in mind that our students may only represent 20% of our population today, but they do represent 100% of America's future. My book consists of 4 steps. In the first, I have an introductory, then initial implementation, then full implementation, and finally, a period where we enjoy the nice fruits of our labor.
Mr. Kalaris, thank you.
Yes.
Your time is up, unfortunately, so we'll be moving on to the next speaker.
Okay, thank you.
Up next is Michael Economides, followed by Jim Bannon, and then Tim Fountain from J.O. Combs or Jennifer Hyham from J.O. Combs, whomever of the two is available.
Michael, if you're ready, we're ready to hear from you.
Mr. Economides, are you with us? Why don't we move to our next speaker? We can circle back if he's able to join us. Jessica, do we have Jim Bannon? No? Okay. What about Tim Fountain or Jennifer Hyham from J.O. Combs? Tim. Superintendent.
Can you not hear me? I was given a microphone.
Okay, Mr. Economides, we can hear you now. So you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Jim Bannon. I love how you recognize the educators. I want to recognize Catherine Haley, Jennifer Clark, Carla Phillips Kravikas, and Anna Tovar, and the guy who has the real job, Jason Cantonese, because he's a classroom instructor. I hope that we can live up to the expectations of our birthday boy with his kindness and diplomacy, and the lady who taught us to be critical thinkers. You might remember my testimony on May 22nd, where your administrator, Sean Ross, cut the speaker's time from 3 to 2, the only organization on earth that would take the person who is their boss and pays their salary and cut their time. But I am going to work with SOS, Rich Nickel, and NEA because I have offered to help you. And since May 22nd, all I've been is lied to. The empowerment scholarship accounts and the 20% underpayment are the two critical problems. And we loved Reagan, but his trickle-down economy didn't work. Let's admit what's not working and listen to Dr. John and myself, two of the world's best communicators, committing to make Arizona #1. I testified to Katie that I have met with 40 superintendents and principals, and the only one who won any awards is Dr. Wyman from J.O. Combs. All 40 that I met to turned down a $30,000 or $20,000 offer to improve the reputation of Arizona's education. We need to start listening. And I see that the supervisor is talking on camera while people are speaking to them from the public. Thank you for your time. I am here to help you pro bono, by the way, Dr. Kaur, and Dr. John can help change this world. Thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Tim Fountain from J.O. Combs. Superintendent Fountain.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the panel today. I apologize for having to do so remotely. I am currently traveling out of state. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I didn't see the timer start on my screen, so I just wanted to make sure. I am speaking on behalf of Ellsworth Elementary and the J.O. Combs Unified School District. We are requesting that the board consider rejecting the recommendation of the appeals committee for the A through F grades. And the reason for that with Ellsworth specifically is that we feel that when the appeal was heard, that there was a misunderstanding on the basis of the appeal. There were two components of the Ellsworth appeal. One of those related to some clerical errors with the inclusion students. The board recognized, or the committee recognized, that those points would be valid. They denied that appeal factor because that alone would not change the final outcome. The second part of the appeal was related to our Azella testing, and we feel that we had an error in how that testing was administered, particularly given the newness of that test and the newness of the teacher who was administering it. I think the misunderstanding was related to a feeling that we were suggesting that the test itself was not valid. That is not the case. We think that the administration of the test went wonky because the data for that one specific subtest at that site was different than any of our other sites. The result then is a 0.26 point differential between a D and a C. We're not arguing that this is an A or B school right now. We know we have work to do. We feel that we have those components undergoing, but the implications of a D school are significant. And for that fraction of a point, we feel that there's enough doubt in the data that's supporting that to consider maintaining that C grade. In addition, that school showed growth in the 80% components, being the growth and proficiency. They actually increased in those areas. This is all about subgroup data. We understand that there's a reason that subgroup data is there, and we don't want to diminish that, but we do feel that that's a pretty harsh penalty for what is a very small in count on that site. The total population in that program is only about 22 students. So we are asking that the board consider rejecting that recommendation for denial of our appeal.
Thank you so much for your comments today, Dr. Fountain. We appreciate that.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Brendan O'Connor, followed by Nicole Marquez.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak virtually this morning. I'm Dr. Brendan O'Connor. As the agenda says, I teach at Arizona State University. I have a PhD in education from the U of A, and I'm a linguist. But I'm actually here speaking as a parent from the Creighton School District. My daughter attends a dual language program in the Creighton School District, and I have to be honest, a lot of parents in our district are scratching our heads trying to figure out why The superintendent, who claims he spends 90% of his time and energy on achieving results, is spending so much time and energy persecuting schools that are achieving excellent results. So we're talking about an A+ school of excellence, a school with an A grade on the report card. And these are not high-income schools. My daughter attends a Title I school where every student gets free and reduced lunch, and students, English learners and English dominant students, are both achieving at a high level. So I just checked the most recent statistics. Per pupil spending, as you all know, in Arizona is very low at the state level. We are third from the bottom in the country. And so in lower income districts like Creighton, taxpayers are paying bonds to fund the schools that are being underfunded by the state. And now we are having to waste taxpayers' money on legal defense fees, not to mention the distraction from teaching that results because of these ridiculous lawsuits. So taxpayers who have taken on the costs of funding their school districts directly, those dollars are now being used to defend schools that are already achieving at a high level, using programs that have been proven to help students, both English speakers and non-English speakers. I see my time is up. I'll stop there. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Nicole Marquez.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, President Kaur, fellow board members, Superintendent Horn. I am here representing myself, but I am also a parent in the Creighton School District. I founded the Creighton Academy Parent-Teacher Organization, and am currently helping to spearhead a district-wide parent-teacher organization initiative. And according to the AZ Board of Education website, you, the board, are charged with the responsibility of regulating the conduct of the public school system. At the helm of our public school system, we currently have a superintendent whose conduct includes suing public school districts like my own, who use a Board of Education approved and legislature unanimously approved bilingual education model, and who is heavily pushing literally the defunding of our public schools by turning the AZ Department of Public Education into basically the AZ Department of voucher handouts. Now, I don't say this lightly. If you go to azed.gov, the very first thing you see is empowerment scholarship accounts in big bold letters, along with videos on how to apply, all the resources one would need to apply and to take those funds out of our public schools and to use on non-accredited institutions. Now, it is no secret that the ESA program is riddled with fraud and misuse. Respectfully, President Dr. Kaur, I would like to see included in a future agenda a discussion on how the board can regulate this harmful conduct by our superintendent. According to AJ Crable, who was on Mr. Horn's podcast, student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. Mr. Horn, you've been up to these same tricks for decades, and it's time that your behaviors change if we want to see improvements in our student outcomes. Thank you so much.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn. Jessica, did Michael Economides join us? Just want to give him one last shot.
He actually already spoke.
Oh, he did?
Yes, it was.
Oh, it was okay. There was sorry about that. Vice President Haley, that concludes this call to the public.
Great. Thank you so much, Executive Director Ross. Moving on to item 3 of the agenda. Sorry, all my papers. So we will now take up the items on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve items 3A through 3I?
So moved.
Member Clark first. Any second? Member Catanese seconds.
Sorry, Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. I believe Member Meyerson wanted to speak quickly.
Oh.
Mr. Peltrep is on the move on when reading list, so I'm just going to recuse myself from the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you so much. Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Do I have any opposed? No. Okay, and moving on to, excuse me, I was jumping ahead to 9. I flipped over the page. Okay, and then I think we are ready to go to item 4. Item 4 is a call to the public. This is the time for the public to comment on items on today's general session. All speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Executive Director Ross, have we received any requests to speak?
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up first, we have Susanna Anderson, followed by Maria Herrera, then Kelly Kenny.
You got to press it so we can hear you.
Good morning, Dr. Core, members of the board, Superintendent Horn. Thank you for hearing the input of us parent educators. My name is Susanna Anderson. I am a mother of 12 kids that have been home educated in our beautiful state for almost 2 decades. This is our 2nd year in the program. I currently have 8 ESA students. I come to you today to ask you not to adopt the proposed new handbook. There are numerous changes that we disagree with because they would take away from the program in a substantial way. We parents were not included in the creation of this draft and were not given enough time to adequately review it. Unfortunately, transparency has been lacking in the ESA program recently, and we would like to see that trend reversed. Lately, there seems to be a concerted effort to silence ESA parents. For example, by locking them out of this public meeting and stuffing them into an overflow room, even as empty seats remain up here. At the same time, the cause of those who hate this program, such as SOS and others, is being openly advanced. They are allowed to park a Lamborghini in front of the building to throw shade on the ESA program and certain vendors, while legitimate vendors are not allowed to truthfully represent themselves in the same way. I suggest that the board keep the current handbook for the upcoming school year. There have been too many confusing program changes, even as record numbers of families are joining the program. There is no need to further add to the confusion and backlog by making needless changes. Lastly, I would like to ask you, bring back debit cards for all students. It makes the program so much more accessible and equitable for students of all economic backgrounds. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Kelly Kenny, followed by Whitney Marsh, and then Rosemary McAtee.
Good morning, Dr. Core and members of the board. My name is Kelly Kenny. I have been an ESA parent for 3 years. I am here today to respectfully ask the board not to adopt the draft handbook and to move forward with the renewal of the 23-24 handbook. The new draft handbook is causing restrictions that are not listed in the statutes. These restrictions may cause ESA students to not be able to obtain materials and tutoring they once were able to. For example, on page 17, the grade level must be listed on invoices. If you have a student that is in 3rd grade and you have them tutored at a higher level to meet their need, this may be rejected. A child's grade level should not control what their actual learning is. In addition, reimbursements of invoices must be stamped, paid, adding the paid date and the initials of a service provider attesting to the receipt of this payment. Current reimbursements are being rejected without these requirements. Neither are best practices to ensure an ESA parent is submitting a paid invoice. Invoices are a record of sale, not a record of payment. Please see page 17 in Rule 17-2-1507. As for receipts on page 17, a paid receipt generated by a point of sale system. This appears to state all receipts must be created by a point of sale. Is this a new requirement of vendors? This would limit our pool of vendors available to provide services to our children. In addition, the handbook has arbitrarily disallowed items. Where in the statutes does it state this? Who, other than parents, know what fits our child's needs? Lastly, there are changes in the handbook ranging from page 21 to 22. Assessments are added to the parent-prepared curriculum. I have prepared multiple. This has never been a requirement. STEM and STEAM kits were removed as an allowed item. Page 44 in the bottom of it states payments to private schools should be made through a pay vendor. Is this limiting payments only to this method?
Ms. Kenny, your time is up. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Whitney Marsh, followed by Rosemary McAtee, and then Heather Rubalcaba.
Good morning. Thank you. President Corn, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words this morning regarding possible action on the ESA Parent Handbook. My name is Whitney Marsh, and I am the Director of Policy Operations with Yes Every Kid Foundation. To begin with, I'd like to thank the Department of Education, John Ward, and Superintendent Horn for its efforts focusing on the needs of families and students. Due to their work, over 75,000 students have successfully signed up for the Empowerment Scholarship Account program and are now benefiting from the program. Arizona has been a longtime leader in the education freedom movement, with many states following suit and passing universal education freedom measures in the past couple of years. This leadership should not stop with the legislation, should continue in how the program is administered. I'm here today to ask that before you adopt the proposed changes to the handbook, which is the de facto policy manual for the program, that you consider how these changes impact families' ability to use the program, and if they unintentionally create barriers to accessing the program for lawful uses. Program integrity is more than just how dollars are spent. As the board and department consider changes to administration, we should be asking, are eligible families aware of the program? Can they easily apply and receive a response within a reasonable time frame? Are they given clear and timely guidance on how to compliantly use their scholarships? And are they provided with the flexibility to use their scholarships on educational services and resources that best serve their kids? We're encouraged by the department's recent steps to invest in automated processes for expense review and support a balanced approach that enhances access, efficiency, satisfaction, and oversight simultaneously. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon and for all of your work on this important topic.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Rosemary McAtee, followed by Heather Rubalcaba, and then Bonita Scales.
Dr. Core and members of the board, my name is Rosemary McAtee. I am an ESA parent, and I have been part of this program since 2018. So in the past years, we've always been invited to a variety of handbook town halls throughout the year. Sometimes we would start getting emails about it as early as September. And this year, we didn't receive any notification about this new draft coming out. We were not invited to participate at all in looking over it, seeing where we had concerns or where we had approval. So I want to say that I would like you to follow Tom Horn's recommendation. I also would like to be a stakeholder and have say going forward because I've been a member or I've been part of this program for a very long time now. So there are a few changes that I definitely feel are harmful to those enrolled in ESA and would also harm vendors. On page 44, it says that all payments should be made to private schools through Class Wallet. Many schools now are not receiving payments in a timely fashion, and they are hesitant to accept payments in this way. So we're going to start limiting parents' options of what private schools they can go to as an ESA parent. On page 46, it also tells parents that we can only use reimbursement if we have not used the other three methods, which are all through Class Wallet or the debit card, which many of us don't have for all of our students. And so this would really restrict how parents can pay. It's also, right now, direct pay orders are taking about 60 days. Marketplace orders are even further out. At least that was the status in February when I received an email saying that they were currently working on orders from December. They need to be paid in a timely fashion because there are regular people struggling simply to make rent. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next is Heather Rubalcava, followed by Bonita Scales, and then Catherine Villapadua. Apologize if I said that incorrectly. So then up next would be Bonita Scales, Catherine Villapadua, Cynthia Anderson.
Good morning, Dr. Core and members of the board. My name is Bonita Scales Jenkins, and I've been an ESA parent for almost 2 years now. I am not at all pleased with the revisions to the ESA handbook. Before I start some of my concerns, I would like to acknowledge the lawmaker's letter written to the Board of Education last week. I stand with the concerns and demands of that letter. I too would like to see this revised version thrown out. The 2023-2024 handbook uses its replacement, and I would most definitely like to be invited to attend the proposed stakeholders working group mentioned in the letter. I must admit that I'm deeply annoyed and frustrated that we as parents were not given the opportunity to even see this handbook at all before it went to the state board. Some of my many concerns I have with the proposed ESA handbook are on the unallowable items list because my family is very artsy, and some of those things just don't pan out. Page 39 and 40, the arbitrary limit for musical instruments. Musical instruments purchases greater than $2,000 is not really realistic, especially when your student becomes very talented at their craft. It's going to cost more to help them just to compete with others. And to actually play with others, they're going to need to have their instruments repaired from time to time. It would be a lot more cost efficient to allow them to do that than to order new equipment. My other thing is the concern with footwear, because my daughters are in ballet, and so they need ballet shoes, and they're going to need point shoes, and they're quite expensive. So it'd be nice to be able to use those funds if they're available. My family is counting on you to do the right thing. Thank you so much for your time.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Actually, we had a couple of members who had signed up or a couple speakers who signed up as virtual who are here in person. So I'm going to move them up so that we have all the in-person folks go first. So up next will be Aaron Charles, followed by Kelly Zuck.
Dr. Core, member of the board, thank you for allowing me to speak today. The ESA program has been very beneficial for our family. I have 6 students who have been enrolled in the ESA program for about 2 years now. I'm here to speak for my children and many other families who are concerned with what they've seen in the proposed 2024-2025 handbook. Thank you to legislators who have requested to keep the last handbook rather than continue with this draft for the school year. I think that's a great idea, and I would like to be a part of the stakeholder group going forward. Just a few concerns I wanted to bring up regarding that. Marla Fitter, a mother of 4 ESA students, is mostly concerned that the draft looks like the handbook was attempted to be pushed through without parents getting much of a chance to look at it. She's asking for transparency. The Cruller family, who have 4 ESA students, are very concerned with what they saw. On page 15, footnote 9, it says, any fees may be levied by the department for its management of the Empowerment Scholarship Account Program. It's concerning to consider that the department will choose with no restriction what they want to take from our students' accounts. Lastly, The handbook states on page 44, under pay vendor, that educational service providers typically receive payment within 2 to 3 business days, which would be incredible. I am discouraged to tell you that our education service provider, who has been serving my children for 2 years in math and reading, has only received 7 of my 19 payments. So when I look on Class Wallet, it tells me that it's all approved, but she has not received her payments. And the last one that she didn't receive was in August of 2023. Thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Kelly Zuck, and then followed by, and my apologies, Catherine via Padua. I think I inadvertently jumped the line there, but you two will be up next.
Okay, good morning, Dr. Kaur. Oh, on the screen, Dr. Kaur and the members of the board. My name is Kelly Zook. I've been with ESA since 2019, and I'm often the first to point out the great things that ESA has to offer. I personally put in time, effort, a lot of sweat in that summer, the hot summer, to fight for USA, or fight for universal ESAs in our community. So I want you to please try to remember that ESAs were pushed through because of the parents and their great ideas of what ESAs could be for our entire community. But of course, we can't do it without you. It's never been the process to put that draft of an updated handbook. It has never been put up without parental input. A handbook for our children's education needs parental input. As a homeschool mom, I'd like to be part of the stakeholder process. Please consider me for that role. Based on how ESA program has grown, it could remain a fantastic opportunity for families. Arizona is known for this program, and we need to work together to keep the integrity of this program. We can build it up and not add what seem to be spontaneous restrictions that haven't been properly thought out. There are more than 75,000 Arizona families that are affected by these changes. It's a big responsibility. So thank you, Tom Horn, for providing that alternative motion to put away the proposed draft and adopt last year's handbook. I beg the rest of the board to also consider that. To today's meeting, there've been plenty of people that have presented some major oversteps in this draft. One that I noted was that 3 to 5 business days. I know that there's some vendors that have to close shop from ESA funds being added in because they can't pay their rent, just by having ESA students. So I had to say that of all of the successes that we've seen today with all the students and the teachers, one thing that they all had in common was that parental involvement. You saw them all take pictures with their parents and that community support with them. So I think we should all band together to support ESAs because, with that parental input and yours together, we can be super strong and provide so much for our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Catherine via Padua in person, and then we'll have Cynthia Anderson and Monica Barnett virtually.
And I did pronounce my name correctly. Thank you very much. Hi, Dr. Kaur, members of the board. My name is Katie Viu-Pudua. I have been an ESA account holder since 2020, and I'm a mother of 3 cute kids. So I want you guys to see the ESA children just like all the others. Okay, please don't talk like that right now. They're great kids. They're really smart. ESA has made it very easy for me to educate my children. I'm here today because I want 100% agree with the letter proposed by the legislator about the new handbook. I reject the new proposed handbook. Instead, I would like to do a reauthorization of the 2023-2024 handbook, just like Superintendent Horn suggested earlier in this meeting. Thank you for speaking out to that. I would like to be a part of the stakeholder working group probably made of ESA parents, private school administrators, and homeschool parents with legislative input. Why am I here? Well, I'm not happy that this new handbook was proposed for approval today, and it lacked public engagement, commitment, or input from any of the parents who these ESA accounts, who hold ESA accounts. I think this is very concerning. So one of the things that also is kind of concerning today, a lot of us don't do this regularly, okay? And as we're showing up today, I'm just wondering, is the front of this building event space? Because there's a Lamborghini parked out front with intimidating language on it from obviously somebody who is not pro ESA, I guess. I don't know why they would do that. When I questioned why do they get to park their cars out front, I was told it was an event space, and they asked me if my car was parked in the front. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm like, can I park my car in front? And it was just a really weird conversation. And I'm not happy about that. I did also want to bring up my biggest issue is the vendor pay, and it's actually on page 44 of the handbook. I do have a printout of one of my vendors who actually did send me invoice dates, and then when the class wallet deposits were finally put through, they are not 2 to 5 business days. After approval, they are, but they do sit in pending status for up to 60+ days. And at that point, I wanted to buy kits for my kids or education supplemental materials, and even on Marketplace, they're gone by the time they get approved. Okay, thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Monica Barnett, but I don't believe she's joined us online yet. So we'll go to Becky Green, followed by Maria Herrera, and then Harmony Lurley. So Becky Green is up next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Core and members of the board, my name is Becky Green. I'm a homeschooling mother of 5, the president of our homeschool group, Sacred Heart Home Educators, and my children have been part of the Universal ESA program since the fall of 2022. The proposed handbook appears to usurp the freedom of the parents and the authority lawmakers who put the law into effect by manufacturing new criteria that could restrict the usage of the program as it was intended. And I'm concerned this is a lack of transparency that cooperates more with those who aren't invested in the program or its success, like those maybe parking Lamborghinis out front, while not cooperating with parents who are all in. Ambiguous language is a red flag for me. I'm uncomfortable with the wording on page 20 that says curriculum must include a quote description of activities, exercises, and or problems that will be used to assess learning. I'm not co-educating with the government, so this comes across like an attempt to demand specifics on how or what my kids are learning when we already agreed to the 5 subjects we must use the funds for when we sign our contracts. I'm also deeply concerned about account restrictions for non-utilization of funds and the requirement on page 59 that parents notify the ESA office when funds aren't spent. The last time I had to contact the office after emails and help desk tickets went unanswered, I was waiting on hold for 100 minutes. So the problem is during this year's handbook review, parents weren't just on hold for hours, they were disconnected completely from the process. So I encourage the board to accept the recommendations in the letter from the legislators to reject the proposed handbook. And I'd like to be part of the stakeholder group that comprises parents of the 76,000 plus students enrolled in the program. Because we are your primary stakeholders, we are doubly invested in the success of the program as not only primary educators of our children, to whom the funding belongs, but as taxpayers funding it. And we deserve to be involved in the stewardship of this great program that is now the leader in educational opportunity in this country. Thank you for your time.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Cynthia Anderson, followed by Maria Herrera, and then Harmony Lurley.
There. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Core, as well as members of the board for this opportunity to speak. Some of my colleague parents have spoken very, very well in advance of me, so I'll keep my comments short. For what it's worth, I do have a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in public administration from our local Arizona State University, as well as a number of years I've worked with nonprofit organizations, both nationally and locally, in auditing programmatic as well as financial operations. I'm also a 12-year home educator and a 2-year ESA parent. I agree with everything that my colleagues have said relative to maintaining the existing handbook, and let's try to get parent input this time around in a substantive way so we can all make the program better, because the whole point of this is to educate our children and to educate them well so they can be future contributors to our society. But saying that, my point in areas where I had most concern, where it was on page 8 and page 49, where it says failing to spend a portion of your students' ESA funds annually in at least the following subjects, and it lists reading and some of the rest. Man, how are you going to audit those? And is there an audit program in place beyond what Mrs. Green talked about relative to the contract that we signed? It's just, there's a lot in this new draft that seems to be new and contrary to the legislation. So I hope that the board will consider maintaining the existing handbook and allow us together to work as both stakeholders as well as professionals to make a program that really works for our students. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to possibly helping if that is of assistance. Thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Maria Herrera, followed by Harmony Lurley, and then Maggie or Michael Jetty.
Hello.
Hi,
Yes,
go ahead.
this is Maria Herrera. Thank you for I'm also an ESA in the ESA, and it's been such a blessing for family. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
You're a little spotty. Perhaps consider taking yourself off
This is Maria
screen.
Herrera.
Ms. Herrera, you're cutting in and out. Do you want to try turning your video off? Sometimes that'll help the sound.
I'm sorry. Off screen. I'm so sorry. Yes,
That's
can you
okay.
hear me now?
We can, yes.
Hello? Yes. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yes, again, this is Maria Herrera. I've been an ESA parent for almost 2 years, and it's been such a blessing for our family. I'd like to add that I myself was homeschooled and am a graduate from ASU. I have a bachelor in biology, and I love to share that knowledge with my children. I also read through the letter that the board that you all received from our legislators, and I completely agree with the recommendation to adopt the current ESA handbook for next year. I hope that you, as the state board, will vote to keep that current handbook. It was a bit disappointing to find that we as parents didn't see the handbook at all before it went out to the state board. I know it's always come out, and it was kind of strange that it was very silently sent to the state board this year without our parents' knowledge. This program is for our children, making us parents the most important stakeholders. As previously mentioned, there have been many problematic areas in the draft. One such issue is that they are asking that we add our children's grades to each invoice, which just adds an unnecessary hassle to our submissions. We do already report our children's grade level when they enter the program, so this added burden on every single invoice is a bit cumbersome and not necessary. I take my role of teaching my children very seriously, and these little unneeded hassles take my time away from that role. I do appreciate your taking the time to listen to our comments today, and I really hope that we can work together to best serve our children as we continue their utmost important formation as educated citizens. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next is Harmony Lurley, followed by Maggie or Michael Jetty. We're not quite sure which one yet. And then Lindsay King. Harmony, are you with us?
Yes, hello.
Oh, go ahead.
Distinguished members of the board and Superintendent Horn, my name is Harmony Irely. I would like to urge the board to put the handbook changes on hold as proposed by Superintendent Horn. A few of the concerning changes to the proposed parent handbook include the new requirement for invoices from schools, vendors, facilities, or therapists to include a paid stamped signed initials and the inclusion of the student's grade. This puts an undue burden on the providers and the parents. We live in a digital society where invoices are generated and delivered electronically. It is inefficient and creates a terrible burden on parents to have to get specialized additions like stamps and initials. Furthermore, information like a student's grade are irrelevant and unknown to many of the providers. We homeschool, and my child's piano teacher has no idea what grade my child is in. Please do not put requirements above and beyond what is acceptable as an invoice in all other realms of commerce. Such burdens will further limit vendors who want to deal with the hoops they have to jump through to work with ESA students. Second, limitations such as number 8 on page 13 of the handbook that ESA students must receive allowable purchases within the same contract year cripples the education of homeschoolers and others who school year-round. What if we need to sign up for a 12-month educational program mid-year? You cannot limit all home educators to run on the same educational schedule as public schools. This restriction should be removed. And lastly, putting money limits on educational items like $2,000 on an instrument is arbitrary and unnecessarily limits a child's education. We as parents are responsible to use our children's funds for their education, and we need the freedom to make choices about what is best for our children. Thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Maggie Jetty, followed by Lindsay King, and then Paige Mason.
Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Jetty. Michael Jetty is with us.
Yep. My name is Michael Jetty, and I'm speaking on behalf of my wife, Maggie Jetty, who couldn't make it because she works in the public schools as a speech pathologist and had a student meeting that came up today and asked me to read her letter. My wife wrote, I read the letter sent from the legislature, and I agree with their suggestion of using the 23-24 handbook this next year and going through the process this year of crafting an updated parent handbook for 25-26. ESA has been a tremendous help to families that choose private or home education and for those children who need extra specialized therapies. ESA has also been tremendous for the professionals that can provide their specialties and materials to students to be paid through the students' ESA monies. She says, my cousin is also a speech pathologist and has many clients that use ESA. She is an approved vendor through ClassWallet. This school year, it took 2 to 3 months for her to be paid through 2 of her clients, and several of her clients wanted to leave the program because they were mortified that it was taking so long. I am a mother of 4 children and 1 on the way. My children have been receiving ESA since the beginning of this current school year. We are very grateful for this program. However, there are many concerns we see with the new proposed handbook. My youngest daughter has a speech disorder and qualified for ESA this past fall. She just turned 4 years old. In the new handbook, it states, failing to spend a portion of your student's ESA funds annually in the following subjects, reading, grammar, mathematics, social studies, and science can result in termination. It is not appropriate for our young child using ESA funds for speech therapy. As a parent and speech pathologist of children with mild to severe language disorders, for children 3 to 5 years old, we parents want our children to have functional language skills. The new requirements would
Thank you so much, Mr. Jetty. We really
Sorry.
appreciate your comments today.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Paige Mason, followed by Lindsay King, and then Caroline Medrano.
Maybe some.
Miss Mason, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I also ask that you reject the new handbook. I just became an ESA parent at the end of 2023. I have 2 special needs children. I disagree with some of the things that were listed, especially chemicals. It's very hard to do science experiments, for one thing, at any kind of more advanced grade level without any kind of chemicals. And as I previously said, both of my kids are special needs. On top of all of our core classes, we do a lot of life skills. We do a lot of vocational training and things like that. And some of the unallowed items are going to inhibit their learning greatly. I appreciate your time, and I ask that you please stick with the current handbook. Thank you so much.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Lindsay King, followed by Caroline Medrano, and then Carrie Perez.
Lindsay King is not online yet. And it looks like, I believe Kelly Pichettino is ready to go.
Okay, Ms. Pichettino, you're up next.
Hi, good morning to the State Board of Education and Superintendent Horn. My name is Kelly Pichettino. I just realized going into our 7th year in the ESA program. I'm also on the Parent Advisory Board this year. And I would like to say a couple things. I come here before you to advocate for you to postpone the adoption of the proposed current ESA handbook given to you. Over the last weeks and today, certainly, you've received an overwhelming amount of public feedback online, uploaded. As I'm sure the board does know, there's 100 pages worth of valid concerns highlighting the potential negative impacts of the proposed changes on students, particularly those with disabilities, and their access to education and the educational materials. The voices of our community members cannot be ignored. They have brought light to significant changes that are in this handbook that affect the program and the access to our children's education. Many of these concerns revolve around the accessibility of education for these students, regardless of their educational choice. I apologize, I made some notes on my typed out letter. You have heard from ESA stakeholders already today, parents, vendors, who fear that certain alterations to this handbook may create additional barriers for their students, making it harder for them to receive the support and the services they need to succeed. Students with disabilities in particular and home education students are at risk for being disproportionately affected by these changes and these barriers put in place. In light of these concerns and these substantial public feedback that you have received, I urge the State Board of Education to postpone the adoption of the proposed ESA handbook. This will allow for you all to further examine and have deeper discussions on the issues raised today, ensuring that the changes made do truly serve the students, the parents, the stakeholders, and the best interest of our students, the education. It seems that the laws have not changed, so it seems that some of these barriers and proposed changes given to you, it seems that it kind of changes the program. Let us take the, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Melissa, have any of the folks who are absent joined us?
Yes, we have Lindsay King ready to go.
Ms. King, you're up next.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good morning, Dr. Kaur and members of the board. My name is Lindsay King, and our family has benefited from ESA program for the last 2 years. I'm here today representing not only my family, but the 76,000 other ESA families, asking that the Board of Education not adopt the revised handbook for the 24-25 school year and to continue to use our current handbook until a stakeholder group with legislative help can be set up to work on establishing a handbook for the 25-26 school year. The ESA laws are very clear as to what we can and can't do. The lawmakers spent a lot of time writing, and what has happened is legislating through policy. The hardest part is that it just felt like it was done under our noses. As I know in the past, it has been a lot more public when the handbook has been revised and put out for all parents to be able to take a look at. Somebody coming in new off of the ESA program, thankfully, has all of these other wonderful parents to open my eyes to know that this is going on, and making sure that we have a voice in educating our students, because it's truly about our students. Things like this hurt our students, and that isn't what anybody wants in the state of Arizona. So we're asking for transparency and communication from the Board of Education. The examples that I was going to share today have already been shared a couple of times. I'm just going to draw a quick just quickly to them, just any fees may be levied by the department for its management of the Empowerment Scholarship account. And the other one was the point of sale system that some of our vendors are being required to use. And that would hurt not only families, but the vendors as well. So our family, we're not for the revised handbook, and I strongly encourage all board members to reject this agenda to approve the new handbook and to continue using the current one. Thank you so much for your consideration with this matter.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Caroline Madrano, followed by Kevin Beastie in person. Ms. Madrano?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Good morning, Dr. Kaur and members of the board. I am a homeschool mom from Anthem. I've been home educating for 13 years, and I have 5 students currently enrolled in ESA. We're in the middle of our homeschool morning. I've got kids out there doing school, but I thought it was important to just take a break and on teaching and to just speak up about this. I wanted to point out a concrete example of what changes in the ESA handbook would mean to our little homeschool. Specifically, the changes on page 46 that would require people to use Marketplace instead of paying for things and then filing for reimbursement, which is what we often have to do. For example, my 3 oldest boys, they enter a competitive history essay contest every spring. They're super excited about this. They were asked to pick a topic mid-February. They had a week to think about it, and then I ordered books. They needed those books swiftly because they only had 3 weeks to research and write their paper, which is not much time when you're in 6th grade. And at that time, though, my Marketplace orders, I was still waiting for things from December. So what that meant was I had to just order the books and then file for reimbursement. No amount of planning could have predicted that my 6th grader, for example, wanted to write about Pompeii. And up here in Anthem, our library has been almost completely stripped to make more space for the high school. So they really wouldn't have been able to join in and do this and be a part of this competition if I hadn't been able to order those books. So in closing, please remember that we as parents are not administrators. We are trying to educate our kids. Those kids are waiting for me to get back out there to teach math and science and all the things that you want me to teach that I want to teach them. Every extra task or hurdle you add to this process becomes one more component that we have to administer, and that takes our time away from teaching. So please, I would encourage you to keep the current handbook and to take the time to let parents review this and give you good suggestions, because otherwise you're going to be spending that time sorting all this out after the fact. So please let us give you feedback, adopt the handbook from last year, and then let's go into next year with parents having given you what they think will make this easier both for you to administer and for us to use, because we're doing this together.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank you
Madrano.
for your
so
time.
much.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next is Kevin Beastie in person.
Oh, thank you, Madam Vice President, members of the board, staff. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Much of what I was going to say has already been said. We support the motion to wait on any changes to the handbook and that you adopt the current handbook for the time being and to enhance the stakeholder process. I represent the Arizona Christian Education Coalition. We represent schools and families here in Arizona, and a lot of the changes that were indicated in the report will have an impact on them. So I look forward to participating in this process with you, and I want to thank Superintendent Horn and Mr. Ward and his staff for their diligence in this, and I look forward to working with you in the process of time. I'll end my comments. Thank you.
Melissa, has anyone joined who had been absent? No?
No, no one else has joined.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, that concludes this call to the public.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to item 5 for the general session. Is there a motion to move number 5B to first and 5A to second? Do I need to have a motion, or can I just do that?
You actually can just move the agenda item.
All right, we're going to switch things up again. We're going to do item 5B first, and then we'll consider 5A second. So 5B is the presentation, discussion, and possible action to approve the Empowerment Scholarship Account Handbook for school year 2024 to 2025 pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. With us today is John Ward from the Arizona Department of Education. However, prior to calling Mr. Ward up to present, I do believe there might be some comments from board members that can be taken ahead of time.
All right. Are there, I see Superintendent Horn has his hand up. Superintendent Horn?
Yes, thank you. For the reasons I said in my report, I'm moving that the current handbook be extended for an additional year, that the executive director recommend to the board a group of people to constitute a working group to facilitate input, that he would receive input from the legislature, but as always, he exercises his good judgment to present a balanced working group to the board. I think that's it for my motion.
Okay. Do we have any other comments? Or are you making a motion right now, Superintendent?
I'm done. Sorry, I forgot to take down my hand.
Okay.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, to clarify just procedurally, a motion can be made. There's not a requirement that the folks from the department present. If the board so chooses, a motion can be made. However, based on what has been on the agenda, published agenda, the motion would have to be only for the ESA handbook. Any movement towards any sort of stakeholder group or working group is a new agenda item, cannot be discussed under this agenda, and would have to be tabled for another meeting.
Okay. So is there a motion to consider a vote on the handbook, or are we going to proceed with a presentation from AD staff on the ESA handbook?
I made a motion. There's a motion on the floor.
Okay, so I just want to, I'll restate then. Superintendent Horn, you've made a motion that the state board to adopt the fiscal year 24-25 ESA handbook as the ESA, or excuse me, you motioned that the state board adopt the fiscal year 23-24 ESA handbook as the ESA handbook for fiscal year 24-25 or school year 24-25.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Clark has a second. All in favor?
What, just discussion.
May I ask you a question? Thank you. Vice President Haley, just to clarify, because it got like a little bit it's the year, it's just last year's handbook. Yeah, the current.
Excuse me. So adopt the school year 2023-24 ESA handbook as the ESA handbook for school year 24-25.
Okay. Thank you.
Vice President Haley, can I have?
Sure, Dr. Kaur.
And with all due respect to the wishes of my colleagues, given the importance of this issue, I would love to hear at least some truncated presentation. We heard from a lot of folks today, and I know the department is ready to speak, was scheduled to speak to this issue. I'd love to hear John out for a little bit before I cast a vote one way or another, with the acquiescence of you and my colleagues.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, so that would be a board decision. If you would like to move forward, we can set the motion aside.
We can set the motion aside. Is there agreement amongst board members to hear Mr. Ward's presentation on the ESA handbook? Is there general agreement? It seems like a majority of individuals are in favor of that. So let's pause on the vote for the ESA handbook. And Mr. Ward, if you're available, we would love to hear your presentation.
President Kaur, Superintendent Horn, Vice President Haley.
So I appreciate all of the parents who showed up today to share their feedback and concerns regarding the handbook. After hearing some of this feedback, it is clear to me that we could clarify some of the misconceptions that exist around this handbook. So I will use this opportunity to just touch upon some of the larger substantive changes that we were initially proposing in the handbook. So the purpose of this revised handbook was obviously to comply with Arizona administrative rule, which requires that the Department of Ed present a handbook to this body every year. And most importantly, we were very interested as a department, as an ESA staff, in ensuring that we had a handbook that was very useful to ESA families. We understand that this program is so important to these families, and so we wanted to put the best handbook forward that we could. Next slide, please. So in considering parent feedback, starting in September, we sent out monthly emails to parents asking for feedback on the current handbook in preparation for this handbook that we were going to propose. And so we received over 125 comments from parents during that time period. We meet quarterly with a parent advisory committee. In the very last parent advisory committee, we asked for their feedback on the handbook. We gave them a heads up so that they could prepare to provide substantive feedback to us. So we received that and we heard it. And my ESA staff, who spends a lot of time working with ESA families because they're on the telephone with them, trying to serve them as best possible, they are very aware of the concerns and issues that parents have. And so I relied heavily on that staff as well in preparing this handbook. And I will say, amongst the majority of the feedback that we got from parents, starting in September, late September, the majority was integrated into the new handbook. Next slide, please. So there were two types of revisions that we made to the handbook. The one I just want to quickly touch upon are the style revisions. There was a lot of duplication in the current handbook, and so we tried to streamline the handbook again to make it more user-friendly to ESA families, so we reduced duplication. I think after 11 years or 12 years of the program and the handbook, things had just been layered on top of each other over and over. And so things often felt disjointed in that handbook. And so we reorganized information within the handbook. And also from a readability perspective, most of it was written in passive voice, which I think is very difficult for people to consume quickly and easily and can create confusion. And so we revised most of it to be in active voice. So those are the stylistic changes that we made to try to make it more user-friendly to our families. But next slide, please. But there were some substantive changes that we wanted to touch upon in the handbook that we drafted, and there were 4 substantive revisions. The purpose of these revisions was to increase compliance with state law and to ensure that we had within the department prudent stewardship of the ESA program for its long-term viability and health. Next slide, please. So the very first change that we made to the handbook was to be very clear that account holders will no longer be able to use the Empowerment Scholarship Program solely for summer use. So we have situations in which families are entering the ESA program after the public school year has ended. So sometime in late May, early June. And so when they apply, they receive all of quarter 4 funding. A couple of weeks later, after July 1, when Q1 has started, they also then receive the quarterly funding for Q1. And then shortly before the next school year begins, public school year, these students exit the ESA program and are back in public school. And so essentially what has happened is that you've had these students funded for 2 quarters for summer enrichment, and essentially they were never committed to being part of the ESA program. Next slide, please. Now, within state law, it says that in 152403H that the department shall accept applications between July 1 and June 30th of each year. So year-round, we accept applications. This is not an application issue. This is a funding issue. State law 152402C is very clear that ESA students are allocated 90% of the funding that they would have received had they gone to their local school district. But in the scenario that I've just outlined, what you end up having is a student who gets more than 1.0 ADM from state funding. And so in this case, a student could end up with 1.25 ADM funding, or if they've done this over multiple summers, which some families do, they end up with 1.5 ADM funding within the year, which is not consistent with 152402. So that's the statutory basis that we believe we have to make this recommendation. Next slide, please. The next substantive change that we have was that private schools should not be custodians of empowerment scholarship accounts. So what has come to our attention is that there are some schools who establish ESA accounts for their families. They will they will create email accounts and passwords to create the login. And essentially, they have total control over the ESA accounts of these families. So we've had families call in and say that they don't have access to their own ESA account, or in worst case scenario, that they weren't even aware that they were part of an ESA program, because these schools have created these logins for them and have full access to them. So to diminish this conflict of interest, we are asking parents, and we are making very clear in the handbook, that schools should never have your login credentials, whether it be the password and their emails, that they alone should be the sole custodians of their accounts. Next slide, please. The third big substantive change that we proposed in this draft was that students with a disability after their 12th grade cohort year must annually submit an education plan. So for those students who have reached their 12th grade cohort year and they wish to stay in the program, the current practice is that they will sign an attestation, their parents will sign an attestation that they have not graduated or earned their GED, and that they would benefit by continuing to remain in the program. Next slide, please. Now, within 152402-4N, which covers this issue, it gives the Department of Ed the responsibility to identify the minimum qualifications for the evaluation teams that would put together these annual education plans, as well as the factors that the evaluation teams would use in their work. And so while attestation, I understand for families who have students with a disability, is very easy and user-friendly, it's not contemplated by state law. And so the department's overriding goal with this one is to ensure that we are that our practices are consistent with state law and those expectations. Now, I understand also for those families who have students with a disability, they may assume that if they have to get these annual education plans, it's going to be very onerous for them, because at the public school, getting an IEP and having an MET can often feel very, very burdensome. And so the Department of Ed is not interested in any way in overburdening these families. And so we will be creating an evaluation team that is as least onerous as possible. Likely that evaluation team would consist of a qualified examiner, which is a doctor, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist, a parent, and a school official. So with regard to cost and time, our overriding interest is to ensure that this is not onerous, but that we are following state law. Next slide. And the last item, and parents have commented quite a bit on this, is that items that do not involve a reasonable expense will not be approved by the Department of Education. And the way that we are defining items that do not involve a reasonable expense is supplemental items that are designer items or items whose prices are at or near the highest end of the range for the item type. Next slide, please. And our overriding concern and goal with this requirement is that the Department of Ed wants to be a very good and prudent steward of this program. And so when there are extravagant purchases being made, it puts the program in a very difficult position. So we have recently had families try to, an account holder tried to buy a luxury wristwatch that was $15,000, massage chairs that are $5,000, and golf simulators that are $24,000. So these are not the types of items that the Department of Education is going to approve in with its goal of trying to be a prudent administrator of this program. And for that reason, we feel like we have a solid basis for this. Furthermore, there was a recent ESA appeal decision that this board approved, which supports the Department of Ed's position. Recently, an account holder tried to buy a $2,400 food freeze dryer, and we denied that purchase. The hearing officer agreed that that purchase was not allowable, and this board approved the hearing officer's position. So this body itself has also appears to have supported our position. Next slide. Furthermore, there may be a question of whether the department has the authority to implement that type of limitation on purchases. But when we look at State Board Rule R7-1507A, it says the department shall establish and maintain a database of approved expenses and disallowed expenses for the current and upcoming fiscal year. So this rule acknowledges the department's authority to identify and create these lists of approved and unapproved items. And so we feel like we have the basis in board rule to do this. And furthermore, in not approving extravagant items or items that don't have, that are beyond a reasonable expense, again, all of those categories in state law that are allowable purchases, the department continues to allow all of those types of purchases within those categories. We just won't allow things that are extravagant within those categories if they fall into them. Next slide, please. So that concludes my presentation. President Kaur, Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Ward. Are there questions from panel? Ms. Clark, Member Clark.
Thank you. Vice President Haley, the only thing I want to mention before we potentially dig into a bunch of questions is just to remind the board that Director Ward was presenting on the draft, but the motion is now no longer for the draft. The motion now from the department and from the superintendent is to keep the current handbook for another year. So I just mentioned that because I don't want us to go down a series of questions related to the draft when that's not the motion that's on the floor.
Thank you. Are there any other questions about Mr. Ward's presentation today? Oh, Member Tovar, please.
Thank you, Vice President Haley. Thank you, Mr. Ward, for your presentation. Just a couple of questions. They're coming, what we heard earlier from parents that were testifying and coming in person and online. So a quick question. A lot has been said in regards to the parent involvement in allowing them to provide feedback. There's mention of there was past town halls that were established. And I'm not sure how many years ago that those took place. Maybe if you could walk me through, you had mentioned there was 125 comments from parents. And then from there, it went to a parent advisory committee as well, too. And also you had mentioned there was numerous of emails that I guess were sent to parents as well, too. first question would be, do you consider 125 comments, I would say quite a bit of comments in typical of what you've received in the past?
So President Core, Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, the comments that we got, I think, are fewer than we've got in the past. But if one recalls last year's hearing regarding the parent handbook, there was much more dissatisfaction with that handbook than there is today. And so I think it is a function of the fact that there were less issues with it. I believe we have, one of the parents mentioned there are 100 pages of comments with regard to the draft itself. I believe there were 400 pages last year. And so with regard to parent feedback, obviously I support where we're at in the Department of Ed and the superintendent's position that if we need to continue to solicit feedback, we're going to do that and we're going to do it well. But giving parents several opportunities going back to late September through surveys to provide information, we felt was a very reasonable way and a very orderly way of collecting this information. In the past, there had been webinar meetings, and they had collected some information. That way, I think it was hard to document all of the comments and concerns that parents had. And so having them submitted in this written fashion was a much more orderly and documented way of doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Thank you for that baseline, because as a new member, I'm not familiar with what has transpired in the past as well. So thank you for that. You'd mentioned a lot of the revisions on the handbook that was the draft, or essentially what you feel would be appropriate in abiding by state law. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And also in regards to a question and a comment that was made by many parents was in regards to the payment vendor system. Maybe if you can explain a little bit to me as being a new member in regards to maybe there seems to be some type of lag in regards to payments being processed and paid. So maybe if you can walk me through that system of how usually they come to fruition and how quickly they can get payments processed.
So with the growth of the program, because it has been so popular and served parents so well, there has been an explosive growth in the sheer volume of purchases that come through on a daily and weekly basis. And so we have been doing our very best as good stewards to carefully review the items that are coming in and get them approved. And so I understand that there absolutely has been some lag time for parents waiting for their orders to come in. We have, as a department, been exploring ways that we could be more efficient and more effective, and we have implemented these changes. And so the reduction of the backlog has been reduced dramatically. And so we're at the point now where for those students and those families who are submitting invoices for direct payment, we're within 3 weeks of that. Let me just, for those who are seeking reimbursement, we are still about 2 months out, but we were much further out than that. And we're trying to triage. We're obviously trying to get to address those reimbursements that are largest and oldest first to get through this backlog. But we do acknowledge that, yeah, there has been some wait time, but we are absolutely proactively working with Class Wallet to find, and we're working on automation and other procedures that are going to help us stay on top of all of these purchases.
Thank you, Director Ward, on that. When you'd said, there was an expansive amount of growth where you were inundated, what has been the current staff that goes through the actual invoices, and have you increased that as well?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of your question.
That's okay. How have you increased staff in regards to processing invoices? Because it sounds like something happened where you're able to process a bit more.
So we are in the process of hiring staff. We had some staff just start last week that is helping us to stay on top of some of this. But we're also improving our our procedures with Class Wallet to be able to review these things more quickly.
Thank you.
Through automation.
Thank you. My last question in regards to the draft itself. So, your department went through it, many iterations of it, of the handbook. My question, and maybe if you don't have the answer, maybe a Superintendent Horn does. Was this something that the superintendent signed off on the latest draft in regards to the revision that he approved of as well?
Yeah, all of the what's included in this handbook is always a conversation within the Department of Ed, and superintendent is always kept abreast. I would never move forward without the superintendent's support.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Ward. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Much. All right. Do we have any other questions pertaining to Mr. Ward's presentation? Seeing none, I think we will now proceed with the original motion that was first made by Superintendent Horn and second by Member Clark. I'll restate it before we vote. The motion is that that the board will vote to adopt last year's handbook to be used for this year. Specifically, a motion that the state board will adopt the 2023-2024 school year ESA handbook as the ESA handbook for the 2024-2025 school year. So motion's already been made. It's been seconded by Member Clark. I guess we'll now move forward with the vote. Is that correct?
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, because there has been a gap in time between, it would be helpful if the motion could be remade and second. So if we could just go through the process again for
Okay.
clarity, that would be great.
So with that, do I have a motion that the state board to adopt the 2023-2024 school year ESA handbook to serve as the 2024-2025 ESA handbook?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Clark. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One opposed. And any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. I think we'll now move on to, I think if we could do really fast the legislative update and then do a break, and then we'll race through items 6 through 10. So Rico, you are on deck.
All right. Good afternoon, President Corr, Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. I will keep my comments brief on our legislative update. We are hitting the back half of session, so everything is starting to slow down. There's a little bit of breathing room to have discussions about bills that continue to move forward. And we have been meeting with stakeholder groups to collaborate on some of our priorities for this session, as well as the shift has been to start focusing on implementation guidance for any bills moving forward that may touch on the administrative work of the board. An update on bills moving through 1465, which is the early literacy bill that we voted on in the prior month in opposition, has not moved since our last board meeting. So there is no update there. And the sort of omnibus bill that made some changes around our annual financial reporting with the Department of Auditor General's office for schools, along with the A to F letter grade changes that were proposed and some other pieces within that legislation, has been substituted for a floor amendment or for a committee amendment in the House. And that is something that staff is monitoring as well. I would like to keep my comments brief, so I will stop there. But if members have any questions for me about any pending legislation moving through, I would be happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions from members of the board? Seeing none, thank you so much for your update, Rico. We really appreciate your work.
Awesome. Thank you.
So with that, members will take a break. I can't really see the time. I think it's 11:18. If we could reconvene at 11:30 Arizona time for those that are not with us, that would be great. Thank you. Go ahead and get started, and we will begin with item number 6. Item number 6, this is a time for the public to comment on the certification enforcement actions consent agenda. Members of the board may not
Vice
discuss
President
items.
Haley, can we just,
Do we need to
I wanna
wait a
make
minute?
sure I want to make sure we have a quorum.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm ready to jump the gun.
6. Yeah, we've got a couple. Okay, Dr. Coors joined, and yes, okay, we now have a quorum. So thank you. My apologies. So we've moved
Sorry.
to item 6, call to the
The
public.
item side 6, call to the public. This is a time for the public to comment on items on today's consent portion of the enforcement actions. All speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. And Executive Director Ross, have we received any requests to speak?
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, we have one request to speak during this call to the public. It's virtual. It's Nicole Krug.
Great. She's connecting right now.
And Ms. Krug, you can begin as soon as you're ready.
Finding the unmute. Thank you so much. Dr. Core, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Nicole Krug, mother of the minor victim in the Joseph Volkman case. To clarify what is posted on the state board website, he was the head coach of the program at Shadow Ridge High School. There were more than 2,000 text messages and pictures, which equaled over 500 screenshots mentioned. For the past several years, volleyball was my daughter's passion. She loved to be on the court and found joy in learning about the game and put every effort into becoming a better athlete. After coming forward and telling the truth about what Joe was doing, everything changed. She has since walked away from volleyball and no longer wants to play the game, not even for fun. His actions have stolen her joy of volleyball, but what I want you to know is she is the bravest, most courageous, and fearless person I know. She stood up for justice in the face of adversity, knowing no one had listened to his prior victims. She knew it could cost her some friendships, and as suspected, she was harassed at school and online by those close to Joe. She knew she had to remain silent until the authorities concluded their investigation in the hopes justice would be served. Meanwhile, Joe was allowed to spin the narrative as though he were the victim. I hope Joe gets the help he desperately needs, and so he never again chooses his epiphophilic desires over a minor's joy of a sport or sense of safety. Joe may not have committed a felony this time, but what he did was morally and ethically reprehensible, and the people's behavior, especially when unchecked, escalates. The most important message I can share with the board today is I am so proud of my daughter, and I trust her bravery in your hands will save other students from becoming victims. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for speaking.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, that concludes this call to the public.
Great. Thank you so much, Executive Director Ross. We're going to move on to item 7. Item 7 is the consent agenda for enforcement actions. The consent agenda for enforcement actions will be taken in a single motion. Do I have a motion to approve items 7A1 through 7A15, 7B1 through 7B3, 7C1, 7D1, 7E1, and 7E2?
So moved.
Member Tovar moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Clark seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we are now moving to a call to the public. Item 8. Item 8 is a call to the public. This is a time for the public to comment on items on the general session portion of the enforcement actions. All speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Executive Director Ross, have we received any requests to speak?
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. We have 2 requests. One, first will be Richard Huntley, followed by Morgan Bigelow.
Executive Director Ross, Richard Huntley has not joined, but Morgan Bigelow is ready.
Sorry about that. Good morning. My name is Richard Huntley. I've been a PE teacher here in Arizona for 29 years. On January 16th, I had my PPAC hearing right in this room, and they ruled against me to suspend my teaching certificate. And the reason I want to talk to you today is the lawyer representing the case tore apart my character, saying I was someone that should never be in an Arizona classroom, and I put a 9-year-old's life at risk. That arrest he's talking about is a domestic arrest in December of 2018, and that was a flat out lie. I have an email proving that I did not do this. I fully take responsibility for my other 2 arrests. I'm very remorseful for those things. I'm a good person, but I'm an amazing teacher. After this PPAC hearing, my head of human resources came to me in a meeting, and she had me sign a form for me to resign a month early. She made a mistake on that, so I could still be teaching. This last month's been the worst month of my life. I miss teaching so much. I've been showered with cards, emails, texts, calls from parents telling me the kids haven't stopped crying since I've been gone. Every student in my school wrote me a personal note. My dad taught for 34 years, and it's very well-known PE teacher in upstate New York. And I followed in his footsteps, had an opportunity to move back and take over for him. But I love Arizona, and I wanted to stay here. So I'm just asking for you to please consider letting me keep my certificate and getting back to the work and the profession that I love so much. And again, I'm very remorseful for these. I'm embarrassed by my arrest, but that one that he tore my character apart, that one flat out is a lie. It was dismissed in court. I have proof. And there was a stack of character letters defending me. So thank you for your time, and I hope you consider that. Thank you.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next is Lou Caputo, who's represented the state in the Huntley case.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. The PPAC voted, it was a unanimous decision. It was a 5-0 recommendation for the suspension. They did weigh all of the evidence, and they had a more than reasonable basis for its recommendation. There's a collection of unprofessional conduct. You have misconduct or conduct involving alcohol, aggression. They found 4 different aggravating factors, no mitigating factors. And the record demonstrates that they were taking credibility into issue. They did weigh all the evidence, and during at least one of these incidents, there was a child present in the next room. The child didn't have to be present directly witnessing everything, but there was a child in the next bedroom. So the convictions and the conduct due process was afforded. And so I would submit that the 5-0, as I said, vote in favor of the recommendation should stand and be persuasive. Thank you.
Melissa, has Morgan Bigelow joined us? So Morgan, as soon as you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Morgan Bigelow. I represent Aaron Quigley. I don't have any further comments, but I am available if there's any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bigelow. Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, that concludes this call to the public.
Great. Thank you so much, Executive Director Ross. Moving on to the general session and the certification enforcement actions, item 9A. What I'd like to do is take these in a single motion. Do I have a motion to approve items 9A1 through 9A7?
So moved.
Member Tovar makes a motion. Do I have a second? Member offers a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes carry. Moving on to item 9B. Again, I'd like to take these items in a single motion. As always, board members may call for the removal of any item to be discussed and voted upon separately if they so choose. Do I have a motion to approve items 9B1 through 9B12?
So moved.
Member Clark makes a motion. Do I have a second? Member Catanese makes a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to item 10. Executive Director Ross.
Vice President Haley, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, a reminder that the next meeting is Monday, April 22nd at 9 a.m. And then I just have one very, very exciting announcement before we adjourn. As you know, we have been without a deputy director for quite a while. As you can see, the grays coming in my beard. Since Deputy Wonders moved to the governor's office, we are very, 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 very excited to announce that Bruce Duplanty from the Arizona Department of Education will be joining us April 1st. Bruce is in the audience with us, and Bruce has been the Deputy Associate Superintendent at the department, has overseen educator certification, educator prep programs, educator excellence, teacher recruitment and retention, a number of initiatives related to the board's strategic priorities. More importantly, as brilliant as he is, he's an incredible person, and I've had the chance to work with him for almost a decade. Very excited to have him joining us, and so I just wanted to make sure we welcome Bruce to the team. We'll put him on the spot to speak next meeting.
You took my words. I was like, I'm ready. We were ready. No, just kidding. Well, great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all who participated in today's meeting and your questions that you asked. We were able to accomplish a lot. And with that, I think our meeting is adjourned at 11:42. So thanks.
Thank you, Vice President Haley. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.